Some reason my camera is not working at the moment. Don't worry. I can't just show my face. It is locked, I think. It's okay. We'll start. Sorry, I had to cancel last week's lecture because I was not feeling well, having fever. Right, here I am now at the moment. Right, so let us continue with what we have been doing. I'll open CostX. Okay, let me share the screen first. Right, and I will open CostX now. We measured the foundations, if you can remember, and then the tie beam. Right, so we were in this project, Muscat Hotel, or building, I should say, because here we talk about building and projects. Project is the big one. Building is within the project. You create certain folders. You can call it as building, or sometimes you can do it as substructure, superstructure, and so on. So according to the way you want, you can design, or you can decide the folder structure. But your folder is, of course, for the educational version, we all know it is your default project. That's why you see here default project. Otherwise, let's say you have a folder called, let's say, Tibet campus. Then you'll have a Tibet campus project. And then there you have new buildings within that Tibet campus project. So that's how it is. So I open this. Right. So this is what we have been measuring. And if you open this, we have measured foundations and the PCC and the tie beam, if you can remember. Right. So we have used a so-called invert function here, so that you don't want to see all the other lines. You want to see whatever the required lines, so that you can do your measurement faster. That's all. Right. And then you can turn the layers on again if you want, or you can go to show all, then you'll see everything together. Since you have so many lines and we are using shift and the mouse to get the areas, so we want to get rid of these unnecessary lines. So for that we used invert function, and then from here you can use whatever the line that you want to see and then click on invert. Then you will get the opposite of what you are doing. Basically, you disappear the lines, and then you will see only those disappeared lines. So we have learned this. Right now we have selected tie beam method, tie beam area method. That's why these items have been selected. So I go to the standard, right? Right. So, okay, that is where we are now. Today we were thinking about measuring the columns. Right. Before that, I want to show you just a reminder about how the column height can be calculated. Let me yeah. I hope you can remember, and I will also open the drawings that has standard details. It was under structural, and we had foundation layout. We have opened it. PCC details. Yes, this is what the standard measurement or standard details. So we had the tie beam sizes given, and here we had on your left hand side, left top corner, you had the foundation size and the PCC sizes given. So we have used this all the way through in order to measure the foundations and the PCC. Now we are going to measure the columns today, and also we have measured the tie beams. We have used the area method. Sorry, yeah, area method, right? Let me open this. You can see area method. Why I say area method here? Right. You can see here because we measured the area of the tie beam. I'll double click on this. I'll double click on this, and you can see the parameter that we have assigned. We have created a folder called concrete. That's why you can see here, right? And then we needed the display, the outcome in volume. So we have selected the volume. And here default width, sorry, default height. Why we have to give only the height? Because we measure the area. We are measuring in 3 dimensions like volume. You have to have 3 dimensions, correct? One is the height. The other one is the width. The other one is the length. Since we are measuring the area from from CostX, right? What you need is only the height. So remember, if you are measuring the area, you need to assign one dimension, that is height. If you are measuring the length, right, you need to give width and the height, both. For that, you can see the size of the plinth beam here, tie beam here. It is 300 by 500. So 300 width, 500 height, right? If you take this one, I'm just taking an example. This is 500 and this is 300. So you can measure the length, then you have to give both dimensions. If you measure the area, the top of the tie beam, then you have to give the height, because the third dimension you need to give. CostX doesn't know, because this is a 2D measurement. At the end of the day, what we are doing is still 2D measurements. So user has to do a lot of things. When it comes to 3D measurements, of course, you don't have to assign all these things. You can do it very quickly, and I will show you how to do that when it comes to 3D measurements. Right. So now we have done this using the area method. I'm measuring the same tie beam again, but this time I'm going to measure only the length, right? I'm using this one for some other reason. So let us practice this as well. Now, if somebody is asking, okay, how about having different tie beams like TB1, TB2, TB3, different sizes? Then you have to create like what you did for the foundation. You have to create tie beam 1, tie beam 2, tie beam 3, tie beam 4, and then you have to measure separately and then get the total, right? So you can do that. So since this is a single tie beam across the entire project, you could have done it in one dimension group. But if it was like TB1, TB2, and sometimes you have TB20, whatever, then you have to create dimension groups accordingly, and then you have to measure them separately, because the area is different, the sizes are different basically, right? Tie beam sizes are different, right? So this is a simple example. So if you have to measure different tie beams, so please create so many, whatever the number of tie beams, dimension groups for each tie beam, and then measure separately like what you did for the foundations. Right, so I'm going to do it again, the tie beam measurement using length method. That means I'm going to measure only the length. Okay, so for that, I need to create a dimension group again. Or you can create a dimension group called dimension at dimension, like what we did, and then create a folder structure. Or you can take a copy of this, since you have already done it. Take a copy, right? And then say, can you do it for me? Do it with me. and say length method, just for me to identify, okay? Otherwise, you don't have to put like this. This is for me to understand how you have done the measurements. So I'll say less length method here. Earlier, we have created as area method. So length method, again, the fold is concrete, right? I'll keep it that way. And I don't want to copy the dimension because I'm going to measure it again anyway. So I'll say OK. Now I need to double click since I'm going to measure the area, sorry, length now. I'm not going to measure the area now. I'm going to measure only the length of tie beam. Default displays, yes, I want in volume, but then default height is 0.5. Default width is 0.3, isn't it? Default width is 0.3, right? And the default offset, now you know what is offset. Offset is 0.1, like what we did for the generation of the 3D measurement 3D model. Okay, it's not the actual 3D model. We are not working with a 3D model anyway. We are working with AutoCAD drawing. It's a 2D measurement, but we can generate a 3D view of what we have measured. So don't get mixed up with 3D measurement. This is not measurement, okay? This is 2D measurement, but you can generate the 3D model. But when we measure the 3D model, there's a different scenario, right? So I'll say update. So can you create this one for me? A new dimension group called tie beam underscore length method, folder again under the concrete or within the concrete. The measurement type is now length because I'm going to measure length. How do you want in volume? Therefore, you have to give other two dimensions. Other two dimension is, of course, you need to give the width, which was 0.3. Height was 0.5 according to this table. You can see here 0.3, 300, and thickness is the height here. That is 0.5. That's why I put these two because I am going to measure only the length. Earlier, I measured the area. Therefore, you have to give the height only. Because it's a uniform section. And I'll say OK, and I'll use not line probably. I'll use a different color, maybe. Any color you can use, purple or something, and say update. Okay. Would you like to apply the new width to all dimension that use the default width? Yes. Right. We are ready to measure now. So how do you do that now? Since you have this too many lines, again, you can use the invert function. But how? We want these foundations, correct? So we'll take, you go to layers and click foundations, right? And then tie beams. Obviously, you need tie beams, otherwise, and yeah, you need them. And then you go to drawings and say invert, right? That's enough. You don't, okay, sorry, you don't have F7, correct? You don't have F7. Right, so we need to select F7 as well. You go back. Right, now invert. Yeah, you got everything now. Right, you can quickly measure the length now. Right, so you measure the length. If you can remember, this is the length because internal line to internal line. You can see it goes up to the edge of the foundation here. Edge of the foundation because we thought the tie beam was on top of this. Okay, we assumed there was no PCC underneath the tie beam. It depends on how you, I mean, it depends on the details, standard details. So in this case, I have not assumed any PCC underneath the tie beam. So I'm just thinking it is at the same level as top of the PCC. So tie beam will go from foundation to foundation. So that's why I take internal line here to internal line. So let us now, since all tie beams are same size, so you go to this and then start measure it, right? So you measure, you are here, and are you going to use point mode? Probably you can use time, line or point mode, right? Um, can you start measuring with me? You just measure, okay, all the lines. That is easy actually. You measure all the lines of tie beams and automatically volume will be calculated. You can see it's becoming 3 now, right? So I use the color, uh, this color. Okay, so you can see what I have measured already. So it's a matter of you need to have a little bit patience here, or you can use the point mode also if you want. Line mode is faster. You should get 9 cubic meters because anyway you have measured 9 cubic meters right before. You know the answer already. So we are just taking another approach. But just make sure you have got everything. Yeah, you have got everything. And you get 9 cubic meters again for the same tie beam. But we have used a different technique here. Only the length you have measured here rather than the area. Right, so that is the difference. So have you got 9 cubic meters? I'll give you 1 minute. So everyone will be on the same page. And if you want to see what you have measured, you can see here there's a button already clicked, an icon already clicked here called measured, and with a green, okay, I can say white click on a green background here. So if you want to see what you have measured, you just click on that. That is already now default position is that is already clicked. And if you don't want to see what has been measured, you can just turn it off, right? So whatever you do, like F2, now if you just click on that, you can see normally it is already activated. So that's why you always, when you click here, you always see the item that you have measured, right? If you don't want, you can turn it off, but default position is it is already activated. Right, everybody has got 9 cubic meters again, like what you did earlier. And please drop me a message. So this time I have used only the length. You can see the parameters, double check your parameters are in line with mine. And then you just use one of the methods, or line mode or point mode, and then select the layers that you want to measure, and you can turn off other layers using invert function, and then just keep on measuring, that's all, and you should get 9 cubic meters. Right. Very good. How about others? Susit, Malinder, they are okay. But others, everyone is getting 9 cubic meters, like what you did with the area. If anyone is struggling, let me know. I don't want anyone to be left behind. Now, if you want to see whether you measure in length method or area method, you can see the 3D. Let's see that when everyone confirm that. Okay, good. Yeah, drop me a message if someone is struggling. Okay, I think everyone is getting the answer. That's good. Okay, now if you want to see again, so what you do is earlier you select what you want to see from here. Let's say PCC, control F1, F2, F3, all the four, what do you call, footings. And then earlier I used tie beams area method. Now this time I use tie beam length method. I select all of them and say drawings 3D. Same thing. Whether you measure in, now you can see, only a single line is shown for the 3D. But answer is correct. It doesn't matter, right? The 3D is not to create a actual 3D from, because your job is not a draftman job. You are a quantity surveyor. Your job is not to create a 3D image of the building that has not been created by anybody. But this is to understand whether you have measured your components accurately, right? So since you have used the length method earlier, you get only a length. You don't see actual tie beam here, right? But still you get the correct answer. I just wanted to show you that. Now if I unselect this one, if I select everything, control all, or I can use entire folder here, right? You can use the entire folder here, then you select all the items. Let's take one by one again. I'll select using shift and down arrow and the area method. Now you see a proper beam here because I use the area into height. Here I use only the length. You will see only the length, but the concrete volume is correct because there will be an internal calculation. The length, the width has been specified, height has been specified. So the calculation takes place within the CostX and give you the answer. Though graphically it doesn't show it shows what you have measured, right? In 3D, in 3D visuals, right? Because you measured only the length, that's why you see only the length of this tie beam. I hope it is understood. So that is the only difference. So visual 3D view will be slightly different when you measure uh, the length of the tie beam, right? Okay, I hope. Can you produce this as a 3D view? Can you select this one and can you select everything else plus length method and see how you will see the 3D view like what I did earlier? You select this one, control, and then just click, or you just click that way. Just give me a second and create a 3D and see, getting a call. So you can create this. Yeah. So it shows what you have measured. Remember, if you have measured the area, it shows the area and then multiplied by thicknesses. That's why you see a kind of solid object in foundations and the PCC because you have measured the area. Here you have measured the linear meters of the length of the tie beam, so you will see only the length. But if you see this method, area method, you will see the full tie beam. So that is the only difference, but the answer is correct. If you have so many tie beam different TB1, TB and TB2 and so on, you will see different sizes. Right, so we have measured this one. What is left is basically now the columns, correct? What is left is the columns. Right, so let us measure the columns. So what is our method? What is our technique? So what is our trick here? Um, let's say this is the ground floor slab, okay? And then let's say you have a tie beam here, a plinth beam here. Right, I'm not going to measure the plinth beam here because since we have measured the tie beam, you can do the same thing, but I'm going to measure column up to this level. From the top of the foundation to the bottom of the, or let's say top of the slab. Okay, top of the slab uh, to the bottom of the, sorry, top of the foundation. Right now, okay, I think we have taken the figures up to the bottom. Let's say bottom of the beam. Okay, let's say bottom of the beam we will measure. Normally, columns will be measured up to the top of the beam for the substructure, correct? Or top of the, let's say ground floor slab. Now, if you go to this schedule, you will see here. And also, if you go to this, you will see now. Let's assume, like, let's assume, uh, let's assume this length on to the top of the slab, ground floor slab, is 1.5. Okay, from the top of the foundation, sorry, from the top of the beam, that is this level, to the bottom of the PCC, you have 1.5 meters, right? Those length will be given in a particular drawing, but for the calculation purposes, we'll take that way. Now, if you take F1, Putting F1, you can see, putting F1, thickness is 500. Putting F1, thickness is 100, PCC thickness is 100, putting thickness is 500. Now, if you take this one here, F1 is 500 here, and the PCC is 100. So, the column height is, right, 1.5 minus 0.1, that means 1500 minus 100, 1400, 1400 minus 500, 900, isn't it? So let us take this up to the top of the beam, top of the slab. Let's say right. Let's say column up to the top of the ground floor slab or top of the, let's say, plain beam here is now F1, because whatever the columns located on footing F1 will have the same length, isn't it? Will have the same length because this length is a constant, let's say 1.5. And we know the F1 thickness and we know the PCC thickness. So when you deduct the F1 thickness and the PCC from 1.5, you get the height of the column, which is 0.9 for this case, for F1. So F2 also you can calculate the same way. So likewise, F3 and F4 and F6 and so on, you can calculate the height of the column, because height of the column will vary. This column height will vary based on the thickness of the footings. So when you select dimension group, it is always better to select a dimension group. So let us create a dimension group because we are going to measure the columns. A stub column, which is from the top of the foundation to the top of the ground floor slab. We are going to measure. Okay. Now, for that, we need to create dimension group. So can you create a dimension group now? Go to dimensions. Yeah. I would get rid of this now. Coming back to show all. Right. And then go to, let's say if you don't want anything, you can turn off. Right. And then you go to dimensions and say add dimensions. Right. How to name it? You can say columns on F1. Why I do that, I will explain you. Normally in Excel, when you do, you will say C1, C2, C3, C4. All the columns you will take at C1, C2, C3, C4 and so on. And then you individually calculate the height of column, correct? You will get all C1 column, C2 columns. But you know, C1 columns are not all C1 columns are located on a particular foundation. C1 will be on F2. Sometimes C1 also will be on F1. Sometimes C1 also will be on F3. Then the height you need to vary. Height you need to vary. Now I am doing a slightly different approach. Even you can use this method for the manual taking off. You always take for all the column on a particular footing. Why I do that? Because the height is same. Then you need to take the areas of each column because height will be the same. I will show you how to do that. You can use this one for the manual calculation as well. Now let us take create one called columns on F1. Right, columns on F1. Right, folder I'll keep as concrete itself again. You are going to measure the area of the columns. You're going to measure the area. Default display, I want in volume because I want in cubic meters. So change it to volume. Default height. Now this is where you need to define the height, which is this now, because let's say 1.5 minus 100 minus 500, that's 600. That means my height, column height, all the columns located on footing F1 would have a length of 0.9. So I say 0.9 here. I hope it is clear. I hope it is clear. This is very important. And default offset also we will do for the generation of the 3D now itself. Now we all know we have to lift the columns by 600, correct? Because this is 500, this is 100. Normally they take reference point as the bottom point, so you need to lift the column by 600 in order to get a proper 3D view of what you have measured. So your offset is 0.6, 0.5 and 0.1. So we'll do that then and there. Otherwise, you have to come and do it again. So default offset is 0.6. So can you agree with these parameters before we go forward? And can you also create a dimension group called columns on F1 folder? Measurement type, you are going to measure the area of the columns because measuring area would be easier in CostX. And you get your volume, and then in that case you have to define your height. That's why I group all the columns on F1 because it has a common height. That's what I did that. If you want to change the, let's say, color, you can do that. Right. Right. And then you create or insert. Now you can see another dimension group has been created with zero quantity. And you know the unit of measurement I have defined as volume, so you get in cubic meters. Now you have to measure columns on F1. Right. First you create this one with these parameters and let me know. I'm not saying that you have to use the same method for all the projects. No, it depends on how you plan. It is what is important. How do you plan? What kind of dimension groups that you need to create? That all depends on the details of the drawing. Right. So I'm going to measure all the columns on foundation type F1. So I have 8 foundation types, F2 and so on. Because why I do that? Because thicknesses of these foundations are different. Okay, I can remember there are similar ones, but it's okay. So we create 8 dimension groups for the columns as well. Right, so I say okay. I think everyone has created this one. Now we are ready to measure all the columns on foundation type F1, isn't it? Now, how you do that? Now it's better you get rid of this unnecessary line. So you go to layers, and what you need to see is here, you need to see the foundation types, correct? Yeah, you need to see foundation types and the label also. I can select the label. We'll find out the labeling here. Okay, sorry, I do it again. Right, I go with foundation types and I need also the columns, correct? We need the columns also. If you don't select columns in one go, you have to select another column. Now I have selected all the columns you see, right? Because sometimes AutoCAD make some issues. So you select all the columns here, and you have selected the foundations. Fine. And what is important is this labeling also, right? So I can't select the labels right now, but I do invert first. Right. Now the problem is you don't know which foundation is which one. So let's see from here any labeling for the foundation. We can turn off. Yeah, you can see foundation identification. So I turn off the foundation identification. Now I'm ready. Now you see I'm ready to measure because I know that is grid. I think the blue one, there was a blue one. I think it was F6 and F7. So let us check that one out first. Right, first we measure the columns on F1. Right, we know the F1s here. And now you go back to, so since you have sorted out this, you go back to drawings. Right, now you can measure the area of the columns. Correct? Area of the columns located on foundation type F1. So let us measure. I think we had about 4 types, 5 here. Right? We can double check from here also. But now let us measure. Right. How to measure the area? If you want, shift, right? Press shift and then bring the cursor and click. Enter. Sorry. I do it again. Shift, enter. Let's see whether we have it has been measured here. Yeah, you can see it's measured 0.17. If you have any doubt, you can just double click. You go to the breakdown of the dimension and see whether you have picked it up properly. Right, so we have done this. So we are measuring the next one. We will keep your cursor here. So select this one, shift and click. Right, and then you can see whether, yeah. Why you are not getting a value? Because these are small quantity. That's why you don't see a value here. Still it is as 0. Okay. Right, so those are F1s, and then are there any other F1s? Yeah, here. Shift, click. Shift, mouse click. So F1, are there any other F1? Only this one, yes. Right, you can see now 1 cubic meters because we have 5 items. You can see whether I have measured it properly. F1, F1. Yeah. Right. So we are ready. And our answer is 1 cubic meter. So can you quickly do that? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 items. F1. Right, now let's do F2. First you get cubic meters, 1 cubic meter, and drop me a message here. So I have measured F1, columns on F1. I could have created a concrete and then I say column or concrete and let's say footings. So I could have done slightly different way if you want, right? Concrete, under concrete you could have said footings, and then under concrete you could have said columns, right? So there's no complications here. So I used only one folder called concrete, right? F1 columns on F1, I got 1 cubic meter. Have you got 1 cubic meter? Columns on F1. Right, now we'll measure columns on F2. Are we ready? Columns on F2 here. Right. Okay, first of all, have you got 1 cubic meter? Sorry. Can you drop a message? Yeah, good. Everyone has got 1 cubic meter, it seems. Right, now we'll go to the next one, which is columns on F2. Let's go to columns on F2. So let us get a copy of this easier. You can say columns on F2 now. Easy. And you can create the same folder structure because it will be coming under the folder called concrete. And if you want, you can introduce like concrete and then you can say columns right now. So I'm not going to do that because already I have done a one. Right click, copy dimension group and say F2. Why I do that? Because the thickness of the F2 is different, therefore height of the column is different. I need to change the height here. Everything else is same. Default height, because anyway I'm going to measure the area. So I'm going to change the height. So F2 height is 600, isn't it? F2 height is 600. So 1.5 minus 600, that is 0.9. 0.9 minus 0.1 is 0.8, isn't it? Here we go. 0.8. That is F2. F2 is little thicker than F1. So height is 0.8, not 0.9. Sorry, yeah, because the thickness of the foundation is more than F1. So default height is 0.8. I'm talking about this height, okay? Right. Can you read that? I hope everyone has got this height concept. It's just right, putting the correct values. That's all. And default offset is now, because this column is located 0.6 and 0.1, 0.7 height. Earlier 0.6, so I need to change the offset as well. 0.7 here, not 0.6. So can you change that as well? And if you want, you can give a different color for the columns. I'll leave it with the same color, right? And then say update. So just check the parameters. Area is same, volume is same, multiplier is same because you are not going to multiply it by 2 or something, because we are not doing some symmetrical measurements at the moment. I'll explain how to use this multiplier, right, later. And default width is not applicable here. Default height, of course, since we are measuring the area, default width is not applicable. Default height is 0.8 because 0.7 plus, sorry, 1.5 minus 1.5 minus 0.6 and 0.1. Right, so 0.1, 0.7, 0.7, 1.5 minus 0.7 is 0.8. So that is the figure you are putting here. But then default offset is the height from the bottom of the PCC, which is 0.1 and 0.6, 0.7. Right, so we are ready now. Right, now you apply to all, because since we are taking copy, you say okay. Right, now we are ready to measure columns on F2. Columns on F2. Right, now let us measure. So let us identify all the F2 columns here. Here we have 1, 2, 3. F2. That's all. It's in only 3 numbers. We can double check later, right? When you produce a 3D model, if you have done a mistake, you can find out. So that is the beauty of this. So F2, let's say quickly we'll measure F2. Okay, these are the areas. So move your cursor here, shift, and then click. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So we measured a shortcut. So we learned how to measure an area with a shortcut like shift and mouse. So that's it. But then you will see 0 here. Then we can double check whether we have captured everything. Yeah, we have captured, isn't it? We have F2, 3 numbers. Yes. Yeah. Now F3. Right. So you get 0 here almost. I will show you. Don't worry about here. This is counter for rounding off here. So when you put into the BOQ, you will see what is going to happen. Right? You can change the decimals there so that you can, if you want, you can even get decimal numbers in the BOQ. Right? So though this shows as a 0 value, actually speaking, it has been, I mean, all the quantities have been captured here. So don't worry. It is less than 1. That's why you see 0 here. Right. Now we'll repeat for the F3. So can you create another dimension group using a copy? Take a copy and say F3. Okay. Under the same folder and say OK. But don't forget now to change the parameters, because we all know F3, all these are correct. Now let's see F3 now. F3 is 700. So F3 is 700. That means 1.5 minus 700 and minus 100. So 8, you have 800, 1.5 minus 800 is 0.7, right? So the height is 0.7. You have to change the height as 0.7. Here, offset is 0.8 because now this is 0.7 and 0.1. Offset is 0.8. Right, all done. Now, update. Right, now we are ready to measure columns on F3. So let us identify F3 columns here. This one here. And also this one and this one. There are 4 columns, F3. Sorry, 4 footings, F3. So let us measure that. Right. So you have to keep your cursor here, right, and then shift, click, right, F3. Shift, click, shift, click. Job done. Okay, not here. There's another one. Right. Right. So we have measured if just check F3, 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 F3. Yes. We have measured F3. Now, if you want to measure, double check, how do you do that? You select F3 here, right? And then if columns on F3 also, then you can see if the colors are contrasting, you can see you have measured columns on F3 correctly because you have already measured F3 previously. So these are the 3 columns, right? And then you can, sorry, these are the 4 footings, and then you can see whether you have correctly measured the columns on F3. You can do for the same thing F2 also. You can see properly done. F1, correct? Yeah, properly done. F4, okay, these are the F4. Then you can earmark, okay, these are the F4, then you can do the F4 as well. Right, so F3, 1 cubic meter. Have you got the answer? Right, now we'll measure columns on F4. Now we know from here what are the F4, only these 2 columns. Right, only change, you need to change the height and the offset. Right, so I'll take a copy of this quickly. Copy dimension and say columns on F4. Right, and then you change the dimensions, the parameters. Let's see the thickness of F4. F4 is also 500. Okay, 500 means 600 here. That means 0.9, isn't it? So let us check the height as 0.9. Here 0.6. Default. Offset. Offset is this, right, from here to here, because you need to lift the column up for the foundation for the 3D. So 0.6, that is correct. And let us update this, and yes, yes. And now measure columns on F4. Okay, only these two, so shift, click, and there's another one here. Shift, click. You get the volume here. You don't see here a volume. If you go to dimension, you see a tiny volume here. Right, so you have done it properly. Right, so we have done up to column 4, F4. Now let's see F5. Okay, only this one, right? F5. Now let us measure the columns on F5. Right, so for that you need to create a copy. And say okay. Now you change the dimensions. F5 is from here. Again 500, same. F500. Therefore, you don't have to change anything here. Height is 0.9 and default offset is also 0.6. So it's the same value. Update. Now you are going to measure columns on F5. So F5 is here. Shift this, shift this. Done. Job done. You can see columns on F5. Done. From here also you can see F5 and F5 both. If you select, you can see columns on F5 have been measured. Right. So I'll measure 6, 7, 8 quickly. Take copy. And make it as F6 now. Right. Let's see F6 900. F6 900 means this is 900 and this 100,000. That means 0.5 is the height of the column. 0.5. So let us change it to 0.5 here. Default height is 0.5 and default offset is 0.9 now. Is that correct? Now 100,000. This is 0.9 plus 100,000. 1.0 offset. Update. Yes. Yes. Now we are going to measure columns on F6. Let us find out what are the F6. Okay, only big ones here. Okay. Now we can see, keep this one F6 here and then measure, right? Shift, click, shift, click. That is job done here. Shift, click, shift, click. Right, 1 cubic meter you can see here. All four columns have been measured on F6. Columns on F6 have been measured. Right, so the volume is 1. Now F7, F8. So let us do that as well. Right click and take a copy and make it as F7. F7. So let us get the F7 thickness 700 here. So 700 plus 100. 700 plus 100 is 800. Therefore, this one is 700. Okay. This is 700 and this is 0.8. Right. So you make it. Now you are ready to measure columns on F7. So let us find out F7 columns from here. Easy. Okay. Only this one, right? Even though if you don't have a label, since you have measured this one earlier, you know what is F7. Right. So let us measure the columns on F7 now. Right here, shift, 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 1 cubic meter, right? We can see we have measured all the 4 columns on F7. What is balance is F8, which is this, right? F8 is this, so we can do that as well. So let us take F8 is 0.7. So it's almost similar to F7 parameter. So you can take a copy easily. Take copy dimension F8. And now you check the parameters. These parameters will remain the same, right? Because same thickness. You are not going to change anything here other than you are measuring the area. So you say OK. Now columns on F8 is this. You measure this. Right. Shift, shift, shift. This one here. Shift and this. Right. You can see from this box also the volumes of each element. And if you want to go to the dimension, the breakdown here, you see that as well. So each one, you know how many cubic meters, right? If you want, you know how many cubic meters of each one. So this is kind of a summary you get. So you have measured everything now. Now you have measured everything by just clicking, by selecting the concrete folder, you can see everything has been measured now. Columns and the beams and the PCC, everything has been measured. You can just double click whether you have missed out anything. Right? And also we can check your 3D and see whether you have missed out anything. You just select the folder here. Or if you want to just take the columns only, you see that. You can see you have not left out any columns. Right. Can you quickly complete this? Measure all the columns on foundation type 1 to 8. Make sure that you get your answers. Everyone is okay? Just drop me a message. Good. Make sure that you get those values F1, 1, F2, 0. I'm not saying 0, but you have a value. F3, 1, F4, 0, F5, 0, or less than 1, let's say. F6, 1, 1, 1. Okay, now let us see whether we have measured everything. Okay, I'll give 1 minute for everyone to come to the same page. And if someone is struggling, let me know. Right. I hope everyone has done this. Now, I'm going to show you the full 3D measurement model. I used to call this as measurement model, okay, not 3D model. Okay, it's a 3D but measurement, right? Um, but this is not necessarily always to generate a 3D model of what you have done. What is important is make sure that you don't have missed out or you have not missed out any items in the measurement process. That is all what we want to know. For that, you go to drawing and say 3D view and select everything. You get full, or you can select if you want only this part, only the column that you have measured, right? You can see you have measured everything, isn't it? It doesn't give you why this is columns are little located up because I have given you, can you remember, I have assigned certain offsets to accommodate the fact that these columns are sitting on top of the footings. Right, then if you want to see footings as well, I think that will give you a good picture. Just select footings and the columns, then you will see your offsets are correct, right? Your columns are correct. You can see columns, whether you have measured all the columns. Yeah, you have pretty much measured everything. You have measured everything. I have not taken PCC here and the plinth beam. And I can take that as well, control PCC. So I put PCC, control tie beam area method, you get everything now. You get everything and you can make sure, right? You can make sure that you have not missed anything. You can double check and you can see whether you have accurately measured the dimensions, whatever the areas that you have taken. Now you can see these columns are located on top of the footings nicely. Right, so can you create this model or can you generate this one? It's a matter of selecting what you want to see, that's all. Right, you can use the entire folder. When you select the entire folder, you get green and this uh, magenta color also because you have measured the tie beam in two separate way. Right, so you don't have to select this one, so you unselect this. There's no way to unselect directly. What you do is basically you select all of them at once, other than that. Yeah, here we go. Right, so we have pretty much measured everything for the substructure. We have measured the PCC, we have measured the footings, we have measured the columns, we have measured the tie beam. Then you must be saying, okay, wait, we have not measured any formwork here. Even we have not counted the number of columns here. We have not measured the waterproofing. We have not measured the earthwork. Yes, we have not measured any of this. And we are not going to measure any of them. Like when I say I'm not going to measure, we are not going to create any dimension groups because from what we have measured already here, so we can generate other quantities. That is something that you need to learn. You don't have to measure any of these under CostX. You don't have to measure formwork. You don't have to measure number of footings. You don't have to measure number of columns. Right? You don't have to measure the PCC, waterproofing or even the earthwork. you can derive all these quantities from what you have measured so far. That is interesting, right? Therefore, we are not going to measure those things now. We are going to move into something called workbook, right? So let's assume that we have measured everything what we want to measure. Now we are going to generate the BOQ for the substructure part, because we have measured substructure items now, right? We have measured substructure items. Yes, we have not measured the formwork, the waterproofing, and then the earthwork, backfill, and all these things. We'll come to that in a minute. Since we have measured major elements, we are going to prepare the BOQ for those elements now. Let's put that way. That is what we call as workbook. That is what we call as workbook. So you have measured it now. You are going to prepare a BOQ for the substructure. Then you have to create something called workbook, like what you created the dimension group. How did you create a dimension group? Right? What you did was basically dimension and dimension. So similarly here, when you want to add the drawing, what did you do? Drawings and drawing. Here, now you want to create a workbook, or we call it as a BOQ in our language. In CostX, they call it as workbook. It's an Excel sheet type of area where you can work your calculation, you can type, you can prepare your BOQ, and then produce a report or produce your BOQ in a form of a report. That is what we call as a workbook. So today we are going to learn workbook, or in other words, how we can prepare the BOQ from what we have measured, at least for the substructure part. Right, so let us create a workbook now. Okay, before that, are you all okay with the 3D view and all these things? You have got, you have measured all the footings and columns, and then PCC and the tie beam. And now we are going to create a BOQ for that part. So that's why we want to learn something called workbook. So are we ready? Just drop me a message if you are done. Have you generated your 3D view? Are there any shortcomings? So to go back and change your measurements. Because you can measure it 100% accurately, because you can see what has been measured visually. And then you can correct whatever the wrong measurement that you have done. Right. So I hope everyone is okay. Now let us create something called workbook. For that, go to this fourth tab or whatever, fifth, sixth tab called workbook. And again, you have something called add workbook. Now you have to give a workbook. Let's say BOQ for, let's keep it as simple BOQ, right? And I'm not going to use anything called rate library. I will explain the rate library later. Okay. Based on, okay, if you have a previously located, a previously prepared workbook, then you can use this based on function. You can say generate a workbook based on the previous project. It's like you are taking a copy of the BOQ from a previous project. Now, since we don't have a BOQ in this project, because we are going it fresh, right? We didn't have any BOQ. So we are going to create a BOQ now for the part that we have measured. So therefore, base date, if you want, you can just put a date, let's say 28 days before. Normally base date is 28 days before the tender submission. I'll just put today's date. Okay. If you want, 4th to 2026. Notes, if you want to put a note, you can put it here. And let's say this is BOQ. Yeah, I'm going to use the same BOQ for the entire project. So BOQ hotel. Let's put that way. BOQ hotel. Right, insert. Here we go. What happened? Now you can see there's an Excel type of area has been created here. And with certain columns, code, description, quantity, unit rate, subtotal. It's almost like a BOQ, right? This is your reference number. This is your BOQ description, quantity, unit, and if you want to make it kind of a estimate, right, you have the rates also, and then subtotal. And if you want to multiply it by, let's say, two number of building, you can do that. So likewise, and then you must be wondering why, what is this user one, user two, user three? Even you can do subcontractor comparison or contractor comparison or tender comparison in a tender evaluation environment. So I will leave it later. I'm not going to discuss this user part right now. I'm going to focus on the BOQ part for the moment because we are going to create a BOQ from what we have measured. Right. So since we don't have a BOQ, I'm going to copy and paste a BOQ now. Right. So copy and paste is possible. Now you can see copy and paste is possible. Now, can you create this workbook first of all? What did you do? You go to workbooks tab and say add workbook, and you get this kind of a window. You just name it and give a kind of a base date if you want. Right, rate library, you don't have to fill in anything. I will explain this one later when we do the reporting. And say insert. You give the name BOQ hotel, right, and then insert it, and you get this. Will come to this kind of a window, which is very different from what we have been doing right now. Now we are in the workbook view now. You can see here earlier dimensions view, right? Workbook view now. We are in the workbook tab. But can you create this one? And I'll give me a second. I will go and pick one of the glass of water. Now you can see in this area you can do, let us familiarize with this area. No, you can just type it, okay, like you normally do, right? You just type it. And then if you want to delete anything, you just delete it, delete it. Can you try some functions? And then if you want to insert a column in between, right, you can just insert it, right click, insert rows, and then delete rows, right, add nodes. It's pretty similar to Excel, but it's not Excel, right? You can add nodes like Excel, right? You just right click and see there are so many. You can hide rows, you can unhide, right? You can copy almost whatever the functions available in Excel, you can do it here almost. Okay, but it's not Excel. I'll tell you why. I will tell you why. Right. The other thing is, if you want, like, let's say concrete quantity, let's say 25. I'm just putting a value, right? Unit rate, unit is cubic meters. I'm just putting a value. And rate is, let's say, 40,000 in Sri Lankan rupees. And you see now, subtotal comes automatically. And if you want to increase the width, you can do that, like in Excel. That is a beauty. You don't have to do any calculations here. All the calculations will be automatic. Now, the funny thing here is, or the not funny thing, you can say most important thing, this workbook has 3 levels. This workbook has 3 levels. One, if you go to this quantity column, right, you double click on this quantity column. Sorry, you got subtotal. You double click on this subtotal, right? You go to the next level. You can see here. You go to quantity column and click, you go to the next level. That means level 1 below. Yeah. So how do you use this kind of Excel sheet now or workbook here? So I just wanted to show you something here. So what we used to do is actually the other way around. So I'll just delete this and I'll delete the entire row. Right, you can also delete a couple of rows. Same way. Right. So what you can do is you copy your BOQ into this. Let's say you have a BOQ in Excel format. So let us get this BOQ. There's a BOQ. Can you copy this BOQ under under subfolder called Muscat Hotel and bill number 10 Muscat Hotel. Right. Open this BOQ. Open this BOQ. Where do you find this? The folder that you have been given, there's something called drawings, right? Drawings and BOQs, and then Muscat Hotel. Under Muscat Hotel subfolder, you have something called bill number 10, Muscat Hotel. That is what I have opened here. And here, can you take the area that I have highlighted in yellow, right? Row number 79, right? Copy this one here from row number 79 to 195. Right, take a copy. It's like you are taking a copy from a Excel sheet. That's all. You are taking a copy and paste it in workbook. But how this workbook has been structured is not that way. Let me show you something different. Now here you have a general summary. You have a general summary. So let us take this general summary first. Take this general summary and paste it here. Right. You don't need this bill numbers and all. You remove that. And this will be your general summary in the BOQ. So level 1 of the workbook is the summary level. Remember that. You start with the general summary level. So I used to call this as level 1. Right? We call it as level 1. And if you want to delete this in between rows, you can do that. You can select 1, 2, like you do in Excel. Right? You can't select with the control, so you have to do it one by one. Delete rows. Delete rows. If you don't want any like gaps, you can do that. Right. Let's say you delete them. And that is your general summary level. Right. That is where you have the trades. Right. If you are doing it in let's say principle of measurements, so these are the kind of sections that you will have as per the POMI, POMI, POMI. Principle of measurement international, right? Or if you are doing it in SLS 573, so you have to go to the sections there and put it as your summary. So I used to call this as a summary level, summary level, yeah. Right now, what you do is basically right. This is what we call as level 1. Now, for each one, let's say substructure. For the substructure part, we have to prepare a BOQ section, right? Then only you will get a summary for the subtotal. You understand? So let's say this is your general summary. Then you have something called subtotal. I will show you how to get the subtotal here. For that, you need to click on this subtotal, and it will take you to the next level. By this arrow, you know that you are in level 1. You have gone to a next level. Right? If you just click on that, you go to the summary level. That's how it works in the workbook. Your first level is the summary. In the summary, you don't get quantity, you don't get unit rate, right? You don't get all these things. You get a value. That's all. Substructure 150,000. Concrete 1 million. Masonry another 500,000. That's how you get, right? So you go to subtotal column here and double click, and you are into the next level. I'll show you why. Now let's say concrete. you put a value here. You let's say you have concrete quantity, let's say 20 cubic meters at the rate of 15,000, sorry, 40,000 as I said before, and you get a value here, 800,000. And now you see what happens when you go to next level. You can see substructure, the value is the summary is 800,000. How it is linked, now you can understand. Always you are in the level 1, you are in the level 1, and then if you want to go to the level 2 is the summary level, let's say. Level 1 is the summary level 2 is the BOQ level, let's say. Each one you can have a BOQ. For the substructure part, you have a BOQ section. For the masonry part, you can have another BOQ section. You can see here. So likewise, you can go to that level by double clicking on this, and this is your BOQ level, right? This quantity I will show you how you can generate the quantity. I've just typed it. I remove this one now. I'm going to, okay, can you, first of all, can you copy your general summary into this level? This workbook has 3 levels. One is this level, let's say level 1, and then go to the BOQ level, that is level 2, and then you can even go to the measurement level, which is called level 3. You can see 2 arrows. Now we are 2 levels down. That means we are in the 3rd level, what I used to call as a measurement sheet level. This is called the BOQ level, and this is called the summary level. That is how I used to say. Is that clear? Can you copy your general summary here, your summary here in that BOQ into Excel sheet?
Hi, sir. Excuse me. You're on mute, sir.
I'm sorry, muted. I'm so sorry. Right. What I'm going to do is now, what I've done is basically I've copied the BOQ here from row number 179 to 195 from the Excel to here. I just copy like you normally copy a BOQ from Excel to Excel. But having done so, you realize that the quantity columns, you have the units, and unit column, you have the quantity. Anyway, you are going to calculate the quantity separately. So you remove all the quantities, and you remove all the quantities because that is not relevant here. Right. I remove all the quantities. That is what we have calculated here, right? We are going to use these quantities and put into the BOQ, right? But we are going to use the descriptions. We are going to use the description as it is. If you don't like these gaps, you can remove all these gaps. Okay. And you don't have to do any formatting at the moment because there's something called reporting that I will do separately here. You can see there's a report. So you can generate reports in a way that you want. So you don't worry about the formatting at the moment. You worry about the quantities and the items. And here you have quantity. Therefore, I'll take all these units into the next column. So can you also do the same thing? Right, I think that's all. So you control X cut, or otherwise you can say cut rows and paste. Either way, okay, cut rows. Okay, all gone. Control Z. Okay, paste it again. And all the quantity is gone. Okay, what I will do is I'll do it again. It's not very user friendly. It is not similar, very similar to Excel. I just delete everything and just do a copy paste again. Right, so I'll use this as it is, copy from 79 to 140, 195 and put it here, the level 2, right. What I don't want is the quantity, so you just remove all the quantities. Right, so delete. Okay, and then you copy and paste the quantity What happened? Oh, sorry, I have pasted in a wrong place, so I will remove all these columns, rows. Right, I'll get it. So this quantities, I can use shift and down arrow like Excel, but it's not very smooth. That's all. So Control X, copy, cut, and put it here. Control V, copy and paste anyway. Now I'm ready because unit is in unit column. Quantity is blank because we are going to put the quantities here from the measurements. And rate, of course, we are going to do it later because we are going to price the BOQ later. First, we are going to prepare the BOQ from the quantities that we have generated here. Now you have 100, so 48 cubic meters of PCC. You can type 48. That is one way to do that. So what is the point of having sophisticated software like CostX and type in the quantities here? No use. And because put the rate is not a big deal, right? And you get the value automatically. That is the beauty of workbook. Now, can you copy this concrete part here and remove all the quantity, right? And then move the unit into the proper unit column and keep your BOQ ready now to insert the quantities, right? Can you copy from here to your workbook? And what we are here, okay, we are in level 2, remember, we are in level 2. Level 1 is this, your summary, right? And you double click on the subtotal against substructure. That is where you have to paste your BOQ or type your BOQ. Normally you don't have time to type this one, right? So you can take copy and paste it here. That's all. Don't worry about this page total collection. You can remove that. You can just remove this, delete rows. You don't need to have any collection. I will show you how to generate reports. You don't need collection pages like in Excel. So remove that. You don't have to save this one, right? It is automatically saved. Do you have a save button here? No. Nobody asked me. It is, if you just close it, you have everything there up to the point that you have closed the CostX. So it is auto saved, real time saved document software. You don't have a headache of saving your work time to time. So even if your laptop is shut down for some reason, all the works that you have carried out up to that point will be there as it is. You just close, you will have everything. You just close and open. You have everything. Just close. Don't worry. It is there. You open Muscat Hotel. Now you are in, you can see BOQ Hotel because we are in the workbook. And just click on that, you get this. Now we have a drawing. Yeah, we have this drawing. Then we have these dimension groups where we can open, enlarge, or expand the dimension groups like this. And now we are working on the workbook. So when you are in this tab, you will have the active area to work with. So there are substructure, you go to subtotal and go to the next level, which we call as level 2 BOQ level. Now blinding concrete. Okay, now we have to put the value here from this. That is the most interesting part. Okay, I will give you 2 minutes to copy this down and make sure that it will look like this. You can move your unit column into unit column, or you can, what you can do is rather than you just copy everything together, you can copy the description first and then the unit column first, and unit column when you copy, you can directly paste in the unit column. You don't have to do it again. Right? Quantity you don't have to copy anyway because we are going to do the quantities.
So excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sometimes we are not getting your audios. Some of us felt that I don't know about the others. Some one, two, three.
Audio.
Yeah.
Anyone? Okay. No sound. Okay. Is it now? Are you getting
Y-
my voice?
Now okay, sir.
Now
Once you
okay.
start the BOQ, after that I didn't hear your audio.
Okay. Okay. Let me check whether everyone is hearing me now. So I think I have muted the mic again earlier. That could be the reason. Okay. Right. So there's no complaint at the moment. Okay, fine. Now what I used to do was, okay, I'll just repeat what I've explained earlier. So your summary level should be in the level 1. So when you open the workbook, you will see the first page, and that would be your summary. Like this. You have the BOQ summary, right? You copy this to this one here. And when you go to the next level, this has level 3 levels. What we used to call as level 1, level 2, and level 3. This is called level 1, which is the summary level. And then if you want to go to the level 2, you have to double click on the subtotal and you go to level 2. That is the BOQ level. That is my language. This is the BOQ level, or in other words, we can call it as level 2. Is that clear? That is where you type your BOQ or you copy your BOQ to. Right. So you copy your BOQ to this. In that case, as I explained, you can copy your BOQ if you want to copy only the descriptions and then the unit, you can do that. Otherwise, you just copy everything like what I did and then remove unnecessary, what do you call, quantity. You have to remove anyway. And unit, you have to move from this column to this column. Right? Whatever the way you copy and paste your Excel BOQ into this one, finish. You don't need the quantity, but you need the units. So you can just type units if you want, right? You can just type. That is possible. The practical thing is, of course, anyone will not type the VOQ from the scratch. You will take a copy from Excel sheet and paste it here. And by doing so, you don't need any totals. I will show you why. You don't need any total page total like unlike in Excel, right? You don't need any of the totals. You just type. You don't have to keep even the gaps here. So I'll remove all the gaps. And make a clean copy, right? And you remove these unnecessary lines, right? You can just make a clean copy of the BOQ. You don't have to think about the page settings and how it will print. I will tell you how to do that, okay? Even ABCD, you don't need. But for now, I will keep it. For now, I will keep it. But you don't need ABCD because you are not going to format this anyway. CostX has a predefined format already. Right, I'll show you how to do that. For the moment, you just copy and paste all the items, that's all. Even you don't need this A, B, C, D. But for now, I will keep it, okay? For now, I will keep it, but I'm going to remove them later on when I complete the BO, what do you call, the quantities. Now, okay, copy and paste your BOQ into level 2, what we call as level 2. I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, are we ready? Now what we are trying to do is we are going to prepare the BOQ based on the quantities that we have already measured. Not by typing. You can just type otherwise 48 cubic meters. What is the point? We are not going to do that. We are going to link the digital measurement to the BOQ. This 48 you are going to measure, sorry, you are going to link into the BOQ so that if there's any difference later on in this 48, this will be automatically corrected. So that cannot happen in Excel, right? We measure in Excel unless you link your backups to this particular cell, your quantity will not be updated. But here it is completely visual link up to the drawing level. Right now, okay. Now we go back just to summarize where we are. So we are in the general summary level and go to subtotal column and double click and you go to the level 2, which is the BOQ level in my language, or you can call it as level 2. Now you have to put blinding concrete right here. We don't normally type it. You can type it 48 cubic meters. There's no harm, but then it is not linked. It is not linked to this measurement. So we don't do that. So what we do is basically you double click on this one, the quantity column this time. We double click on the quantity column this time. Earlier subtotal column. Here also you have a subtotal. We don't go there. Here summary level subtotal, level 1 for level 2 BOQ level, and there quantity column, and this is the area that this is the cell that you need to insert the quantity. Right, so we double click on that and then we go to another level called level 3. In my language, I used to call it as a measurement level. I used to call it as a measurement level. Now, this is the trick. Now you have to put 48 cubic meters so that you get 48 cubic meters here, right, in this cell. So that is the thing, right? So you double click on this and what you do is, right, remember very carefully, watch very carefully. You can drag and drop here, right? Normally, you have length, width, and height, right? Since we have already measured, I can drop anywhere here, right? So I just drop here. Then it will ask you certain question. Okay. What do you want? Quantity, yes. Right? Now, is it round into two decimals? Two decimals like 48.35, you can do that. I'll leave it like that and say update. And now I want you to show you something here. Again, one step back, right? We are in the third level now, measurement level. In this measurement level, you can see count is there, length, width, height. Now, since we have already measured in cubic meters, I can drop this 48 cubic meters into any of the columns here. Not into the columns, not into the count. And the factor, if you want, like, let's say 2 times or 5 times, you can do it later. I will show you how to use the factor. So what I used to do is you take this one, drag, like it's from the mouse, you can drag and drop, let's say length. And then it will ask you a certain question. You can see the quantity type. Do you want volume? Then you can select the volume. Yes, of course, you have selected the volume already. Therefore, I need the volume. Fine. But remember, when I measured at the very first time, it not only measures the volume, it has measured the count also. In other words, you have 19 numbers of foundations, right? Width, height doesn't give you. Length is a perimeter here. Perimeter of all the PCCs, 346 meters. Area of all the PCC, 483. If you want area, not cubic meters, you can select that one and update. You get 486. Then you go back and change this to m square because I have selected the square meters, but I don't want that way. I want cubic meters. Therefore, I don't want to use this one. So I don't change here. I don't delete or type or anything here. I double click here. I always change the quantities from here, third level, because that is already linked. So this is not what I want. So I delete this. I want. Now you can see even the description has been copied. I didn't copy. Automatically it has come. Again I will drag and drop. Even if you have put here, it's okay. So I can put it here. Now you can see I have selected the volume, which is the correct one. I need in 2 decimal places. Fine. Right. Live quantity link. Yes. Remember you have ticked this one. Then only this quantity will be lively linked to the workbook and say update. Now you can see even the description has been copied. It's like your measurement, isn't it? It is your measurement sheet now. Now this measurement sheet has been linked to the BOQ. 49 cubic meters, pretty good. Because this is rounded up now. Sorry. This is rounded up. I'll come to that one later. Okay, rounding part for the moment. 48.5, 48.37 is your measurement. We know if you do, even though this is 48, right? Actually speaking, it is 48.37 when you go to the decimals, right? 48.37. You can see here 48.36 here, right? And it has been rounded to 48.4 the measurement sheet itself, and then when it comes to the BOQ level, it has been rounded up to 49. So leave it like that for the moment. Right? So that is, you don't type it here. That is the most important point. You double click on here, and whatever the quantities you have measured, you just drag and drop here, and your quantity will be automatically linked to this. Now, if you do a change here, let's say you want to delete one of the dimensions because you have mistakenly done. let's say your quantity is 46. If you change this to 46, automatically this will be changed to 46. Therefore, this will be also changed to 46. So that is why we call it as automatically linked, live link. Right? Can you now add your measurement into the BOQ like this? So you have copied this down. You don't type it here like what you do in Excel. You don't type. Right? Go to the next level, double click, and that is where you drag and drop the quantities. You drag and drop the quantities, and then when you do so, it will ask you certain questions whether you want the volume or anything else from here. Right? You can say you want the volume, and then you can update. You can see whether you put it here or here, you get the same value here and with the description. Right? So I don't have to do twice. So remove that. And that is automatically linked to the level 2, which is the BOQ level. You don't type anything here. Anyway, manual typing is not there. Simple as that. Man, that is how you prepare a BOQ. Right? Can you do this one first? Can you link your blinding quantity, this 48 to your BOQ? First, you start with this level and you have copied the general level, general summary level, and that is called level 1, and go to level 2 by clicking the subtotal against the subtraction. And then you come to the BOQ level or level 2. And if you go to the measurement level, which is the level 3, you double click on the quantity. Let's say PCC you have to insert, you double click on that quantity. And that is your measurement level, which is called level 3. That is where you can drag and drop your quantities to. Right? Can you do that? I'm going slow because I want you to understand this part. Then we'll pick up the speed for the rest of the items. Okay, have you linked 49 blinding concrete to your BOQ now? Can you drop a message if you done? You don't have the BOQ? You don't have the BOQ, Excel BOQ with you? Anyone has not got the BOQ because it's there in the folder. You have been given the folder called drawings and BOQ. In there you have in Muscat Hotel folder you have Excel sheet called bill number 10 Muscat Hotel. If anyone doesn't have this BOQ, let me know. I'll put into the group now, WhatsApp group. Anisha, you have it or? Anisha, you have BOQ Excel? No. Can I quickly put into the group? I'll put into the WhatsApp group quickly. If someone is not having the BOQ, can you quickly take it from here? Right, use this. You got it now? I want you to copy quickly, and otherwise you will not be able to practice this. And general summary, you copy this one and then go to the next level by clicking subtotal, substructure, and you will be going into the BOQ level. That is where you have to copy and paste row number 79 to 195 and remove all unnecessary lines. Even the page total and everything you can remove. And then go keep your mouse here, cursor, and go to next level called level 3. And that is where you drag and drop like this. And it will ask you whether you need the volume or any other parameters that CostX has captured during the measurement. Right? Because it is not only capturing the volume, it has also captured the count, length is the perimeter, in this case area, and all wall area is what we call as the okay, I'll explain wall area when we talk about homework. Okay, so and say update, you get your values here. You can see. So that is your PCC area, sorry, PCC volume. It's already there. If you go back now, you can see that is linked to this one. I didn't type it. Right now. So are we done up to that level? I'll give you additional 2 minutes to catch up with others. All good? Right now, the others don't have to wait. What you can do is, since we have measured, let's say, foundations. We have measured foundations. Now you must be wondering, okay, sorry, here, foundations, F1 to F8. F1 is 17, F2 is 22. We don't have to put a foundation type wise in the BOQ, right? We have to get the total volume. So do we have to add 17 plus 22 plus 39, 2 plus plus here? Let's say like in Excel, you don't have to do that, right? Beauty is you go to the next level because you don't insert any of the quantities is in this level 2. You go to next level, what we call as measurement level. That is where you put your foundations. Remember, you are in the foundations. You are going to put foundation volume, right? You have to come to the measurement level. Now you can see F1. You need to have a breakdown. So what you need to do is you have to drag and drop, let's say length column. And I'll take volume because I want volume to two decimals, and so I say okay. Now you can say F1 16.67 I have dropped. And my quantity now is 17 only. That is not enough. That is wrong because it is only foundation type F1. So I have to put all the foundation types. So where do I add them together? You don't have to add. That is the beauty. So you go to F2, you have to drag and drop here. And they say volume fine 22. Now you can see addition is automatically here. 22 plus 17, 39 automatically it has been added at the measurement level. But you don't see any total, right? You don't see any total here. You don't see any total. But still the total is here. That's what I said. You don't have to do any calculations here. The beauty here is, unlike in Excel, automatically the total will be linked to that cell. I have not done any linking here. Did I do any linking? But you can see there's a link automatically created. You can see some quantity. That is programming part. I don't know. I have not given any equation. Right? What I do is basically I have go to the measurement level and I have drag and drop my quantities. That's all. So there's a link already created by dragging and dropping. And these two volume fine, and then this 10 update, and then F6 113 update, and F6 59 and F8. Now didn't I add anything here? No, but you can see the total. You can see the total as 325. I have not added anything here. So what I have done is basically I have gone to the next level and I have dragged and dropped here so that automatically total you can see appear here. There's an equation. I have not created any equation. That is automatically, it has come automatically. Now, okay, subtotal level. Now you have blinding concrete and foundation. Blinding 49, foundation is 325. That is essentially the total of these volumes in the decimals and rounding up the final figure. And if you need the breakdown, you go to the next level and we can see the breakdown. Right? The breakdown of this 16.8 is here. You don't have to go for another breakdown because it is visually, you can see here. If you go to dimension view, you can see what is 17 cubic meters, right? So that is there, these are the 17 cubic meters. So you have the visual link up to the workbook level. You don't need any more link. And that is your foundation, 325. Can you do that quickly? Right? Are we okay? Now we would need to understand how it works, how the workbook and the measurement can be linked. You can't just drag and drop here. You have to go to the next level and drop. That is the level 3. You create a link at level 3 so that you can change the quantity in level 2. Here, why we have level 2, we can put a rate here. If you want 40,000 here. Sorry. You can put a 40,000 and then you get automatic calculation, right? The extensions. The pricing part you can do it here because this is basically BOQ rate, let's say 20,000. And then when you go to this level, you can see 13,980. And you go to next level, then you can see the price difference. You have the BOQ quantity linked to the level 3, but rates, you can insert the rates manually here, or if you have a rate library, which I will explain maybe in a few sessions later, you can have a rate library, and rate also you can drag and drop so that you have a central rate library here. You can see there's a rate library here. You can link those rates into this so that you, when you revise the rates here automatically, a central database, the estimate will be automatically upgraded. So that facility is there, or you can just manually enter the rates if you want. Either way. So I'm not going to discuss that part at the moment, since I'm focusing on the quantities, how to insert quantities into the BOQ from the dimensions. You can see there are so many tabs here, which I have not explained earlier. I was here, that's all. I'll explain all of them as we proceed. Right, can you put the tie beams and column quantities similarly now? Okay, I'll start with columns again. Or tie beam. Tie beam probably easy because it's a one thing. So you don't drag and drop here, right? What you do is you double click and go to the level 3, which is the measurement level. You have to come to the measurement level before you drag and drop. So I will use area method, for example, and put into here, right? Volume. I'll say okay. Either way, you can upload. Sorry, you can drag and drop, whether it is length mode or length method or area method. This result is the same. Now you can see the volume here. Tie beam 10 cubic meters. And the columns now. Double click columns. You don't have to add or anything. If you want, you can drag and drop everything together. If you are lazy, right, you can do that. Right? Volume. Okay. Otherwise, doing one by one would be time consuming. You can drag and drop the entire bunch and put it here and select appropriate parameters, volume, and you see the total here, column 6 cubic meters. And remember, we don't even add them together. So automatically addition will come here. Very interesting, isn't it? Now we have measured blinding, we have measured the foundation, we have measured, I'm talking about the concrete yet. We have measured the tie beam, we have measured the columns. Right? I have not measured any walls or anything at the moment. No. Ramp steps. So it's the same thing. I just wanted to give you the principle. If you have ground beams, you create a ground beam, a dimension group called ground beam, measure. If you have walls, you create dimension group called 200 millimeter thick walls and measure and drag and drop. If you have a ramp, you can measure the area and the thickness. I mean, you know the volume. You can drag and drop similarly. Right? So all the all the concrete elements according to, let's say, principle of measurements. If you are in the Middle East, if you are in Sri Lanka, let's say it is based on SLS 573, you have created the BOQ. So your dimension groups should also reflect these items accordingly. So accordingly you drag and drop, but not to the this level. You go to always the measurement level. You have to drag and drop here. Then only the proper link will be created. I hope it's clear. What I did was I selected everything one shot, right, and then drag and drop here. Any column, right? Length, width, height, same thing. I just clear the content here. And if you need a factor, you can just type a factor if you want. Let's say you have f1 of two numbers, you can just type here, you multiply it by 2. So you can do manual modification if you want here. I'll show you how to do that later when we calculate or when we derives the other quantities such as formwork and waterproofing. Interesting, isn't it? That's all. That's your BOQ. Then I'll tell you how to prepare a BOQ, proper BOQ, when we discuss the reports. So the formatting, you don't have to worry now. You don't have to even worry about this numbering. I'll leave it at the moment for the purpose of, identifying proper items. That's all. And if you think that ramps or steps are not there, you can just delete it, right? It's not coming in your BOQ. You just delete it. That's fine. So I'll leave it for the moment. So there are no ground beams, so you can leave it, right? There were no walls, uh, any of the thicknesses, we didn't have it. Rams, no, at the moment. So it depends on what are the items that you need to measure as per the drawings. So that your BOQ should reflect your drawings basically. And also it should reflect the measurement rules. Right now, we have linked the column quantity, tie beam, foundation, and the blinding. Right now, I'll come to the shuttering of these items now. I'll come to the shuttering of these items. So with that, we'll stop for today. I didn't measure shuttering. How can you include the items now or the quantities? I didn't put the shuttering. I didn't measure the shuttering, for example. Now, this is the thing. Now, let me check one. Let's say I'll go to, okay. Are we comfortable with this? Do you understand the logic behind it? And have you got all the quantities like this? So let us understand from you guys whether you have done it. Yeah, good. Ajmad, Siva, Tusit, Darren, Gobriraj, okay, Dushan, Pitara, yeah, Pitana, good. Yeah, very good. Everyone has done it. And you understand how it works now, right? How to link quantities into the workbook, which is called the BOQ. Right. So very good. So remember, we don't insert any of the quantities at this level 2. We go to the level 3 and then drag and drop. Because level 3 will be linked to level 2 automatically. Whenever you do the changes in level 2, which is this level 3, that will reflect in the BOQ. Okay, so that's how it works. Now, come to foundation. Before that, I want to show you something. We are not measuring the foundations. Why I say we are going to derive the quantities for the shuttering from the formwork itself. Let us start with formwork. Right, go back to the drawing and I'll show you one thing. When I click on this, or when I keep your mouse here, go to now drawings tab and keep your cursor here on F1 and you can see the volume, you can see the figures here. Right, what do you mean by this? Count is 1. Now remember, I measure the area. I measure the area when I calculate the footing found concrete. I measured the area, but you know, CostX will capture other parameters also when I measure the area. It also captures the count, how many numbers. It also captures the length. What do you mean by the length here? 10.41. What do you mean by length? It's not the length of the foundation. Okay, what is the size of the foundation here? F1. This is F1, yeah, F1. F1 foundation is 2.5 and 2.7, isn't it? 2.5. So if you get the perimeter of the foundation, perimeter is the, the formwork area basically, or the girth we call it, right? If you take this, yeah, here, if you take length and width, right? If you take the perimeter, if you take foundation type 1, okay, this is, I've done the calculation for you to see. Now, we have F1 5 numbers, correct? You need to understand. F1 5 numbers you have, okay? F1 5 numbers. Each one is, I've done a small calculation for you to see. Length is 2.5 from the drawing. Width is 2.7. F1, 2.5 and 2.7. Right. So 2.5, 2.7. Height is 0.5. Volume we know, that is what we have calculated. CostX has given that. Right. And then if you want to see the length is the perimeter. What is the perimeter? Forget about 0.5. This is your perimeter, isn't it? Yeah. So length plus width 2.5 plus 2.7 into 2 into 5 numbers. Right. So that is your length of 5 footings. If you want length of 1 footing, you can say it is 10.4. That is exactly what you get here. 10.4, you can see. You can see length is 10.4. That means When you measure an area, right? When you say length, that is a perimeter. That is the perimeter of that particular foundation. So it is matching. You can see here, if I put 1, length is 2.5, width is 2.7. If you want to get the uh, perimeter, that is 2.5 plus 2.7 into 2, which is 10.4. And 10.4, if you multiply it by 0.5, which is the height of the foundation here, 0.5, right? You get the perimeter, and if you multiply it by 0.5, you get the formwork area, right? You get the formwork area. You get the girth, and then multiplied by the thickness, you get the formwork area for the footing. That is what exactly you are getting. Okay, let's say 52 square meters of formwork you have in that case. So let's see how it works for F1. Right now, we are going to, okay, I have shown you some of the parameters here. When you say count 1, we understand. Length is 10.4, we know the perimeter. When you say length, height offset, we know. Area, we know. Area is the cross-sectional area or the top, the plan area. Wall area. What is wall area? Wall area is the formwork area in this case. Wall area is the formwork area. Now I can say if you put a value here 1 and you get 10.4, that is the wall area, is it? Into this, right? Formwork per 1 formwork wall area is 5.2. That is the formwork area here. So when I say wall area, that is 5.2. That is the formwork area of the footing. Volume we all know. So we need to understand these parameters. Why I say that this is important. I'll show you a small calculation now. Okay, now sites of foundation. I'm going to include the quantity for the site of foundation. You can't do it here, as I said before, because we are in level 2. Go to the next level, double click, and this is the measurement level. And you drag and drop now. 17 cubic meters. How are you going to drag cubic meters into formwork? No, no, no. You see what is going to happen. Let's say length. Earlier, when I fill the quantities for the concrete, I have used the volume because concrete is measured from volume. Now the formwork for F1, I have to measure weight, no, wall area or area. Area is the top plan view. No, that is not the area that we want. Wall area is the area that we want. Correct? Wall area is the area we want for the F1. Right? You select the wall area, not the volume now, and say update. So F1 26. Correct, no? F1 we have 5 numbers. Formwork I have calculated length plus width into 2 into 0.5, which is the height, into numbers. And you can see 26 square meters of formwork for F1. When I do manual calculation, I should get 26, and I'm getting 26 by selecting the wall area. That means when you measure the area, wall area means the perimeter into the height, which is an important aspect here. I'll do it again. Right? I'll delete this. Now I'm going to put the formwork area of F1 footings. I have measured in cubic meters. Yes, fine. but still I drag and drop here. You can put into anything. But when I select here, I don't select volume here because I have measured the volume already for cubic meters for concrete. Now I'm going to measure the volume, the square meters, the formwork. For that, I have to select from this drop down menu because I have already measured others. So I have to select the appropriate one to get the formwork area. So I'll use a wall area and say yes. So that is the formwork for the F1. So we have to do everything now. Formwork for F2, same. I have to select not volume now, wall area. Done. Third one. Drag and drop. Not I have to select not volume, I have to select the wall area because I'm going to select the foundation. That's the formwork. Fourth. Drag and drop. Not the volume. I want wall area. I want wall area. As you said, as I explained to you again, you can drag the entire thing and select the wall area. That is also possible. You don't have to do one by one, right? But just to get you kind of a feeling, right? You get wall area, and then here F7 wall area and F8 wall area. Done, job done. Right. So do you have to add them together? No. Go to next level, automatically you can see the addition. So you have 225 square meters of foundation formwork. Job done. Did you calculate formwork? No. How did you capture this quantity? Because when we measure the volume, CostX has also captured other parameters such as wall area, perimeter, right? Sometimes if you have measured something like steel columns, even the weight, you can assign constant, that is kg per meters, and you can even measure the weight when you measure the columns. So that is the beauty. So you can make use of other parameters to calculate the formwork and the and the bituminous paint, even the excavation. You don't have to create dimension group for formwork or excavation or bituminous paint because all the other parameters have been captured. Even the count is there. We know how many count of F1. We know how many count of F2 if you want for something else. We know how many numbers of F3. We know how many number of let's say uh, all total foundations and so on. How many numbers of plinth beam, tie beam. So all the details will be captured in one go. So we make use of those parameters to arrive or to derive other quantities such as formwork and bituminous paint. I want you to get this one quickly and then columns and then tie beam and then we'll stop. At a foundations, now we have done it. I want you to do sides of columns because that is straightforward because that you can use again wall area because we have measured the area. So wall area is the girth into height, which is the formwork area of the columns. I have proved you by doing a small calculation earlier. Now, if you double click on this, you can see, sorry, keep your cursor here. Now you can see here default display, we have measured volume now. So all the other count, length, area, everything will be captured, though you have selected the volume. So that is the idea. Default display volume, but all the others will be also captured when we measure a certain item automatically. Then when you can recall those quantities when you want to calculate something like homework and other stuff. So here when your measurement type is area, your wall area is basically uh, perimeter into the thickness, which is basically the formwork area. But when you select measurement type as linear meters, your wall area is, when you measure block work, for example, you measure in linear meters, then your wall area will become your area of the wall. When you measure a kind of an area on the plan, your wall area is basically perimeter into the height. So wall area has two meanings. One, when you measure block work, wall area is your normal surface area. But when you measure an area, your wall area is basically the perimeter into the height, which is essentially the formwork. I hope it's clear. Go back to workbook. Right. Can we do quickly the side of the columns? Okay. By the way, did you get 225? Just drop me a message here. Have you got 225 for the formwork for columns? Sorry, foundations. Good. And you need to understand how it works. Because at the end of the day, you are a quantity surveyor or maybe an engineer, right? The quantity surveying principles are the same, but the tools are different. Yes, this is a tool, and how it works, you need to understand the principle behind it. Right. So I'll quickly do the column foundation as well. Columns. What I do is I go to the next level, and it is a different new measurement sheet. You can see it is not part of this side of foundation. I don't know where it is going to be stored. That is not your business or my business, right? That is how it has been structured. But this measurement sheet is different from, that's why this measurement is linked to this column, this cell, particular cell. And if you want to do columns, you keep your cursor here, double click, and you find a new measurement sheet or level 3, and then you drag and drop all the columns on from F1 to F8 together, drag and drop. You are not going to select the volume now, you are going to select the wall area, right? Done. And that is your area for the sides, columns. Oh, that is your formwork for the columns. I have measured up to the top of the beam. Of course, there has to be a bit of deductions if you have, let's say, plinth beams. Assuming there's no plinth beam at this project. So we have taken all the columns up to the top of the beam, all right, top of the ground floor. Okay, so that's okay, but when you really measure, you know the levels, proper levels. Somebody might be arguing, how can you get your columns up to the top of the beam or whatever, whatever. You can take up to the bottom of the beam if you want, because tie beam anyway will be crossing. If you not the tie beam, let's say plinth beam you have on this level, and that will be crossing the beams at a particular level. So that's what I said. It all depends on the details of the drawing. Whether you measure your columns up to the bottom of the beam or top of the beam, it depends on the detailing. If you have a beam here, of course, you may have to measure your columns up to the bottom of the tie beam sometime. Okay, those are simple things, and you need to think as a QS when you assign the heights. Right, I go back to this. Now, tie beam. Tie beam is not so simple. Right. Area method, because tie beams, only the two sides. You don't get the four sides, correct? Tie beam formwork is only for two sides here. Only this side and the other side. Not the top, not the bottom. The formwork. Only two sides. Let's say this side, for example. If this is your tie beam, 0.3 into 0.5, you have this side and this side. That's all. The formwork. It's not the wall area now. Right? It is not the wall area. It is the length into height. Length into height. That's all. So can we use this area method to make to find out the formwork? No. Why? When you click on that, double click on that. I'll come to that. I'll go to the beams here. Right? If I drag and drop here, using the area method, what you are getting is area. You can see here length is 146.2 total length. Right? That length is not the length that we have measured here. You can see length is 146, area, whole area. Okay, volume is measured, fine, 9. Wall area is, of course, the perimeter into the height. Right? That is not formwork because shorter sides, we don't have to do the formwork. Correct? And then length is the girth. That is also not the one we want. Count, we don't want. So what we need is basically length into height. Right? Length into height into 2 times, correct? Because you have two sides. Let me show you from the 3D. Right, formwork will be only this side and that side. You don't get formwork for this side and this side. So when you say wall area, you get this area, this area, this area, and this area, all 4 sides, which is wrong. Correct? And when you say length, you get the full length, this, basically the perimeter. That is also not correct. So what you need is basically length, one side of the length of the tie beam into the height and into 2 because 2 sides. So that is how you can find out the formwork for the tie beam. So length into 0.5, length into 0.5 per each one, correct? And then multiplied by, okay, multiplied by 2, 1. take one side and multiply it by 2. So we are going to do that now. So I mean here, sides of beam, with this will stop. Okay. And you get the length. That's why I measured this and drop it here. And what you need is not the quantity. What you need is basically the length. 63.2 meters of tie beams. Not both sides. Not both sides. It is only one side. It's the total length of tie beam. Put that way. Total length of tie beam, one side. So you have 2 times 2. And height is 0.5. We understand now. To take the length of the tie beams, total length, you have 63 meters of tie beam, in other words. 63 meters long tie beams. Each one is 0.5 meter high. That is one side, right? If you want to get two sides, both sides, you have to multiply by 2. Because there's no proper way to get this area straight away. You need to do bit of manipulation. You need to put some common sense here and get the value, and that value will be reflected here. You understand? That's why I use this method, length method, because area method you can't use to find out the what do you call the formwork for the tie beam. Because even if you drop this one, let's say, you can see it's not the volume. It is not the length. This length is not, because you have measured the area. This length is the perimeter, total perimeter. It's not the length that we have measured in the next method. Otherwise, it has to be 63.2, right? It has come 146.2. That means the perimeter of each beam, or the summation of all perimeters of each beam. Area we all know, that is the plan area. Wall area we all know, that is the 4 sides and the 0.5. So you can take this wall area and deduct small sides. That is also possible. You can do that, right? And if I select this, I will show you something very interesting, right? You get this area and you deduct. You have how many tie beams? You can get that. You can get how many tie beams? You can just drop and see how many tie beams. Count. You have 33 numbers. 33 numbers of tie beam. Okay, so what you do is you have count 33 numbers of tie beams. Okay, right. And then this is I have taken. Let me check. Did I take all area? Okay, I have to take the wall area, not the length. Wall area is the perimeter into height. This is a different method I'm talking about. Right, and then, okay, we have 33 numbers. So you have this. Now you are going to deduct those two sides. Shorter sides, you are going to deduct. So one shorter side is 0.3, isn't it? Height is 0.5. You have two numbers for each one, and you have 33 numbers of them. Correct? You have total wall area is this much. I'm going to deduct. You are going to deduct the shorter sides. You have one short side is 0.3 into 0.5, which is this. 0.3 into 0.5, one shorter side. Okay, you have each one, you have two sides, correct? Each one you have two sides. So that's why I put two sides. And how many beams you have? 33 numbers. And if you put a minus value here, you can see -2 because you are going to deduct. Now you can see 63.2. I'm getting the same answer. So either I can do this way or I can take the wall area and do the deduction for the shorter sides because you are not going to do the form work for the shorter sides. So you are going to deduct the shorter sides and you get the same answer, right? So either way is possible. So I would like you to do this because you have already length method. You have got the length. You know each side is 0.5. And if you have different sizes, you can do different heights and different length and then multiplied by 2 because both sides form work. And you get this value and that is your value here. And that is where we stop today. And you can understand now how easy to put the other values when you have measured basically the concrete values from CostX. Because rest is like common sense. You can derive the quantities from the quantities that you have already measured. I want you to get 64 square meters now and put a message on the group and then we'll stop here because it's 45 minutes past 11 and then we'll continue the rest of the items like the excavation and then the bituminous paint in the same way, right? So next day we can continue with this and then we can move on to the superstructure. It's very interesting and I would like to see whether you have got the answer. So can you drop a message? You should be getting 64 cubic meters and this is how you should be getting. You have to drag and drop the length from here and then we know height is 0.5. One side is given here 0.5 thickness height and you have two sides. You have two sides. So you use, if you want to multiply it by a certain factor, either you use 2 here or 2 here. Either way, both are okay. And if you want to do some deduction, you can put -2 as a factor. Let's say if you want to deduct some intersection for something, you can use some factors here or you can insert another line and that deduction can be done in the next line. So automatically, the actual total will come here. So either way, here too or here too, it doesn't matter. That is to account both sides. I hope it is understood by everyone. That is not CostX, that is quantity surveying. Okay, are we done? Yeah, ramp is very pretty simple. You measure the area. I'll explain next time. Yeah, ramp very easy because you are measuring the area into thickness. You're measuring the ramp and the thickness, the area into thickness. And you have to create a dimension group called let's say ramp, let's say 200 millimeter thick ramp, and then you have to get the length from a section because you have to get the incline length, and you know the width, or you get the measurement from the plan, and then you have to multiply by a factor for the inclination, and then you know the thickness, then you can get the area or the volume, sorry, for the concrete. Steps also same. If you calculate one step, you can use the cross-section area into length. Yeah, I'll show you how to do that. But let us complete this substructure section first. Okay, are we done? Everyone has got, yeah, good. So I'll stop here, and I want you to practice this one because this is very important, how to link your BOQ or measurement quantities into your BOQ, right? And you need to understand there are three levels in the BOQ. One is the summary level, and then go to the, BOQ level, which is level 2, and then you go to measurement level by clicking the quantity column twice, you go to the measurement level. That is where your measurement will be linked to the dimensions group that you have created, or the measured quantities. Now, if you delete one quantity, let's say if you do any change to quantity, this will be automatically changed. That is the beauty. So I can't show you that one. If I have to delete, I have to recalculate it. You can try and right now, for example, let's say you just completely delete this dimension group, let's say, for example, right? You just delete this one, and the quantity here in the foundation will be automatically updated. So that is the beauty. You don't have to update the BOQ again manually, because this is linked. Whatever the quantity changes you are doing in the dimension groups will be automatically updated in the BOQ or the workbook. That's why I said it's a live link. Okay, it's not just a link, it's a live link. Right. So you can do bit of experiment here, and next time, right, maybe during the middle of the week, during let's say revisioning, you can delete one of the dimensions. Better you do it in F1, for example, and delete and see how the quantity will be changed here, this 325. And then you can redo it, right? If I delete, I have to do it again to come to the original position. So you can try yourself and see how it changes. All right, guys, so I'll stop here. It's almost 12 o'clock, right? And I hope you can practice this, right? And this is a very important part. And I want you to understand the three levels and how the link will be created within the CostX, and what are the other parameters that have been captured while we measure certain volume or certain area. And you need to understand what the other parameters will reflect, and how can we use those parameters to calculate quantities such as formwork and bituminous paint and so on. Okay, I will explain you the rest of the applications, and I hope you will practice this before you come to the next session. All right, guys, I'll stop here then. I'll call it a day, and thank you very much, and good night, all of you, and take care. All right, bye.